Thank you. And honestly, I am quite a hand talker, so you probably get it just having me muted. And yes, Paige Alcoholic. And I wanted to give you a very special thank you to Michael for the Canadian stamps. I was like, oh, is he going to do the blue nose? He threw out the blue nose. I knew what's up. And listen, this is a joke that only and maybe only Michael will get. Just real directed comedy. Listen, I still got a resentment I didn't get a house hippo growing up. It's heartbreaking. You know. That's for the Canadians. Alrighty. So I'm Paige. I'm an alcoholic, and I've been asked if I could share my experience, strength, and hope. And often I like to share my experience, strength, and hope through a format that is known as the Big Book Bounce Around. And if you're like, I've not heard of that format before, it's because I made it up. And so if you have your big book to hand, amazing, grab it. If you don't worry about it. Yeah, rock and roll. And yeah, if you don't have it, don't worry about it. I'm going to say all the things so you can just hang out, listen, or watch the baseball game. Go sports. So what I felt called to speak on is that there's a thread throughout this book, Alcoholics Anonymous, and it is the thread of faith without works is dead. And we see it throughout this book again and again and again, and where I'm just going to kind of launch into is on page 16. And it's, page 16, second full paragraph. It says, there is, however, a vast amount of fun about it all. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I was jazzed with the stamps. I'm here for it. Like, I am here for the fun. I suppose some would be shocked at our seeming worldliness and levity. But just underneath there is deadly earnestness. Faith has to work 24 hours a day in and through us, or we perish. And that, I'll be honest with you, when I got here, that was not an exciting proposition. I wasn't excited to have faith, nor works. I wasn't jazzed about either of those. And so I have to understand what it means when we talk about or we perish. And faith without works was dead. I needed to come to a place where I understood the need for those two things to come and be intertwined and work in and through my life. I needed to understand that. And I don't know about you guys, but I came to Alcoholics Anonymous with a whole lot of andas. You know what I mean? I'm an alcoholic anda. I also showed up here with like some buckets of yeah buts. Yeah, but I'm young. Yeah, but he drank more than me. Yeah, but I never got a DUI. Yeah, but I didn't have a driver's license. Not that you need a driver's license for a DUI, but those were some of my yeah buts. And I was looking for all the ways I wasn't like you, all the ways I didn't fit, all the ways I didn't belong. And when I understood what alcoholism was, when I understood the fatal and hopeless malady that I suffered from, which, let's be honest, I was hoping I didn't have, I was hoping didn't apply to me, I could see the necessity with which I needed that faith and I needed that works. Which is to say, I needed the program of action outlined in the book Alcoholics Anonymous to get me from my hopeless condition to that state of spiritually awakened. But what does it mean to be an alcoholic? Well, page 44 makes it as simple as it needs to be for somebody of my type. Page 44, first full paragraph. It talks about if, when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit entirely. Or if, and I'll be honest with you guys, I'm an and sort of gal. I'm not an or. But or if when drinking, you have little control over the amount you take, you're probably alcoholic. So those are two statements that I can take and I can turn them into questions and I can see, does that apply in my life? Alcoholism comes down to what is different between me and non-alcoholics. And there are two things that differentiate me. The first is the second statement is once I start drinking, do I have little control over the amount that I take? And I'll tell you what my experience is. My experience is I take a drink. And I get, yeah, you guys know what I'm talking about. I take a drink, I'm comfortably numb. I take a drink, my shoulders, man, it's the only jewelry I'll wear. My shoulders, I was wearing them as earrings, they begin to fall. And I am okay. That emptiness and that screaming coming from the depth of my soul, they quiet down. I'm not a casual drinker. I'm drinking for effect, and I'm drinking for relief. I am a relief-seeking missile. I need an answer. But you see, what happens to me is I get that drink. I get that relief. I get that release. I let go. And I experience alcohol. And it's like a little switch that goes off in the back of my head, and it tells me more. And the more that I drink, the louder that more gets. You see, I take that first drink and that demands a second. And that second insists on 4. And my 4th drink will not relent until I've had 8. And my 8th drink is screaming at me until I've had 16. And you see, I don't know about you, but more often than not, I take a drink and I cross lines in the sand I said I would never cross. I don't know about you, but more often than not, I take a drink and I don't know where I'm going to end up. But more often than not, I come to filled with guilt and shame and remorse and self-hatred. I don't know about you, but I pull myself off the bathroom floor, and that is me being polite. I'm more often than not behind a dumpster, like a lady, pinkies up. But you know what I mean? Like, I cross these lines I said I would never cross. I do these things I never wanted to do. My life becomes one that is absolutely unrecognizable to somebody like me. And if that sounds familiar, that idea that once I start to drink, I don't have the ability to control the amount that I take every single time, that is the allergy. And that was me. And that allergy means that there will never be a time when I can ever safely drink again. Because if I got that allergy, I got that allergy. And if that's my experience, man, I'm going to take a drink and I'm going to do things I don't want to, and I'm going to hurt the people I love. And so if that's me, I need to stay sober. Now, this is the baffling feature of alcoholism. Is I would come to the morning after and I would say, that's it, I am never going to drink again. And I want you to know that every time I said that, I meant it. I meant it with everything that was in me, even if it was only during the spiritual prayer position that happens at 3 a.m. when I'm praying to the porcelain gods. You guys know, all the consumption from the evening is coming up. And listen, I had no problem praying then. But even when it was that sort of I am never going to drink again, it had no effect. What happened to me was a day, a week, a month, several months down the line, I would get a thought. And that thought would happen when I am as sober as I am today. And that thought would tell me, this time will be different. Nobody will ever know. I just got to get it out of my system. You know, my problem was I was drinking with Michael. Us Canadians, listen, we get into some trouble, but this is more of an international crowd. I think I can drink like a lady over here. It also looks like, listen, it doesn't go well when the Blue Jays aren't in the World Series. I mean, but now the Blue Jays are in the World Series. I can drink like a lady, you know. And to be honest, I've never ever in my life drank like a lady or done anything like a lady. Ladylikeness eludes me. It doesn't exude me. It eludes me. But it also looks like a thought that is on me all day. A little voice that says, take a drink. It gets a little louder, take a drink. A little louder, take a drink, take a drink, take a drink, take a drink, until what little willpower I was able to muster is eroded away and I have a drink in my hand. And just as much as it is the case of the Suddenlies. I'm out there living my life. I want to stay sober. I need to stay sober. I have to stay sober. And I get suddenly and I got a drink and I don't even know how it happened. And as much as it is that, it is also that if you were feeling the way that I was feeling, you'd have to drink too. If you're going through what I was going through, you'd have to drink too. If what happened to me happened to you, you'd need a drink. F this, F that. I'm going to kill myself anyway, so why don't I take a drink? And that is the baffling feature of alcoholism. That I have to stay sober. I need to stay sober. I want to stay sober, but I cannot stay sober. You see, step 1 is not simply the concession that I can never drink again. That's part of it. But step 1 is also the concession that I will drink again. There is a relapse, and it is inevitable, and it is imminent. And I can look at my life, and I can look at all the things that I tried. I did not try everything, but everything that I tried failed. I could not find permanent, contented sobriety. I couldn't find it. And even when I would be able to stay sober for a couple months, I didn't want to be here anymore. And I mentioned that because if I'm sitting in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I was, and my illness was untreated, and it wasn't treated, that I get to a place where I don't want to be alive, and suicide seems to be the only solution that I have for my alcoholism. And you see, if that sounds like you, what I want you to know is that here in Alcoholics Anonymous, we have a solution. We have an answer. We have a way out. And our solution that we have is a spiritual awakening. You see, if I can see that if on my own power I will drink again, if I can see that on my own power I'm doomed to go back to the first drink again and again and again, that thrusts me into the reality of my hopelessness, which leads me to that place of, man, I need an answer. I need a solution. And so I need a little bit of faith. And that leads me to the second step. And in the second step, we talk about faith. Now, actually, I'm in We Agnostics. Yeah, let's pop over to page 47. Let's go to page 47, and what we're going to talk about is step 2, part 1. Page 47, second paragraph. It says, we needed to ask ourselves but one short question. Do I now believe, or am I even willing to believe that there is a capital P power greater than myself? And the second step, I for years overthought it and overcomplicated it. I know you guys can't relate to that. I thought I was supposed to have my spiritual awakening on step 2. I thought I was supposed to be walking hand in hand on the beach with God. I live in Alberta. There's not really any beaches. I'm in a landlocked province. Again, it's only funny for Michael. And if we got some other Canadians that did all right in geography class, if not, they were too busy worrying about that house hippo that we didn't get. I'm with you on that. I'll take it up with Mr. Dress Up, Canadian reference, focus page. And I wouldn't. He seemed like a great guy. Alrighty. But that's that idea. Could I believe that there is a power that is greater than me? I don't have to like it. I don't need to define it. I don't need to have had an experience with it. I just need to believe that one could exist. And I'll tell you what my lived experience is. I come to meetings like this with people like you. And I hear you share your stories. I hear that you drank the way that I drank. I hear that you felt the way that I felt. I hear that you experienced what I experienced. And I see that you are happy and sober at the same time. I see that there is a light on in your eyes. Now keep in mind, when I'm not well and I am unrecovered, listen, your light, it shines a little bright. And I'm like, yikes, I'm going to judge you for that. So if you're judging me, that's fair, but I'm going to throw it out there. That's a you problem, not a me problem, and I'll help you write inventory on it. But that idea that I could see your undeniable light, I could see that you had recovered, I could see that there was a solution, and all I needed to believe was that you had found it. I didn't need to know what it looked like. I didn't need to understand it. I didn't need to define it, but I could not deny that you had found it. And you see, oftentimes I misunderstand what faith is. I think faith is certainty. And I think faith is the ability to grasp and to hold on to something. But here's my lived experience. Faith instead is an open hand. Be willing, that willingness to grab onto the unknown, to experience something new, to experience a new reality. And if I can lay aside my old ideas, if I can lay aside my old experiences, prejudices, if I can just reach for something new, because what I've got is not working. I need to have that step 1 experience. And it opens me up for faith. Now I'm in We Agnostic. Let's pop over. Let's go to page 53. And we'll go to the middle paragraph, second paragraph, page 53. When we became alcoholics, crushed by a self-imposed crisis, which I will say is rude. Rude of you to call me out on a self-imposed. Rude. I mean, accurate, but uncalled for at this hour. Crushed by a self-imposed crisis we could not postpone. I couldn't put it off or evade. I couldn't avoid it. We had to fearlessly face the proposition that either God is everything or else he is nothing. God either is or he isn't. What is our choice to be? And that's a tough question. Because, man, I just barely admitted that there could be a power greater than myself. And you're going to throw something that feels like a little bit of heavy theology at me? So how do I reconcile that? How I reconcile that? Now I'm going to the baseball's on, but I'm going to softball this. I'm going to underhand throw this thing. This thing is going to be like T-ball. You know, I'm not going to, I wish I knew the name of one of the pitchers. I know there's that really good guy for the Dodgers, but that guy, no, we're going to set this thing on a T-ball. And so this is the T-ball version. What do I think is bigger? And my little rinky-dink problem with alcohol or the spirit of the universe? What do I think is bigger? And if I can imagine that there could be a power that would remove from me that thought that I have when I am sober that takes me back again and again to the first drink, man, that's what it's asking. Can I believe that that is possible? It doesn't happen yet, but can I believe it's possible? And again, I see you, and I cannot deny that you have changed. I cannot deny that there's that light and that there's a peace and that there is a joy and it is palpable. I can't deny that. But it goes on to say God is everything or else he is nothing. God either is or he isn't. What is our choice to be? And then it says we're squarely confronted with the question of faith. So we're thrown faith at us. So I'll tell you how I answer that question. The book also gives a wonder, and I did a talk a while ago where I broke down this part of the book in great detail about how I take that leap from bridge to shore. But I'll tell you how I reconcile the second part of the second step, which is to say that I look to my own experience. And we can hold space for our own experience. And is your experience that you should not be alive and sober today? Is your experience that you are alive today based on seconds and inches? Seconds you didn't earn and inches you didn't deserve. Is it possible that we are alive and sober today by the grace of a power that we do not like and do not understand and might not want anything to do with at this point in time? But is it possible that our very existence in the here and now is evidence because that wasn't on my own will, that wasn't on my own power? Man, I've been talking about this lately. Almost no one here chose our sobriety date. How often did we say, I was never going to do it again? I'm going to pick a cool number and I can't stay sober. You know what I mean? Could there not have been a power there? Now, if you want to, all of my metaphors and my little activities, it's all consensual. You don't have to. In fact, if you don't want to participate, you can just check the baseball scores and you let me know how it's going. If you want. No spoilers for the people that are like recording it. But what you can do is you can close your eyes. And if you want, you can come to a time in your life where there has been a peace and a presence that you could not otherwise explain. Where a calm presence came over you. A time where you were out in the mountains. I live right by the Rocky Mountains. It's some of the most beautiful places on earth, but maybe you're out in the wilderness, out by the ocean, and you just feel that oneness, that connectedness. You see the Milky Way and you're lost in the infinity of the universe. Or maybe you're holding a newborn in your arms and you see the universe in their eyes. Have we had any experiences like that? And you see, if I have had any experiences like that, if I can believe that I'm here based on seconds and inches, what I cannot say is that God is nothing, because I have lived experience of there being some sort of power that has worked in my life, so I cannot say God is nothing. And if God is not nothing, then God is. And if those are my choices, then God is everything. And that's how I can reconcile. Now, keep in mind, all the second step is asking of me is to have the faith that there could be a solution. But at this point in time, I don't have the solution. Now, we're going to pop over to maybe an interesting part in page 93. We're in the page 93 bottom paragraph, where it's talking about your prospect may belong to a religious denomination. His religious education and training may be far superior to yours. In that case, he's going to wonder how you could add anything to what he already knows. Now, I'll tell you, in 2025, there are people that absolutely come with religious training and education and all of that. But you know what I find more often in 2025 is the person that knows everything about Alcoholics Anonymous. You know what I mean? And I'm saying this as somebody, one of my favorite types of alcoholics to work with, to take through the steps, is chronic relapsers. They're often the easiest. I know that sounds like counterintuitive, but they're often the easiest. And it's that idea of like, no, I know I can read how it works from memory, or I can quote the promises from memory, or I can do slogans, or I can do this, I can do that. I know. But what I knew could not keep me sober. You see, that did not work. It says, in that case, he's going to wonder how you can add anything to what he already knows. But he will be curious to learn why his own convictions have not worked and why yours seem to work so well. He may be an example of the truth that faith alone is insufficient. Faith is not enough. To be vital, which is to be life-giving, faith must be accompanied by self-sacrifice and unselfish constructive action. So if the faith that is asked of me, in the saying, in the slogan, in the thread that is tied through this book, faith without works is dead. If faith is the belief that there could be a solution, I need to start there. But I also need works, which is to say, I need action. Okay, so if faith is just that openness to believe that there could be something, there could be a power, there could be a solution, what is the works? You see, because if I have that profound understanding in step 1 that I will relapse, and in that understanding in step 2 that there is a power that can keep me sober, it sort of leads me naturally to the, what do I have to do to get there? What do I have to do to get to that solution that I don't yet have? And that's the works. Now, if you want to bounce around with me, I'm just going to talk about the chapter, how it works. And we can pop over to page 58 and just dive in right there. How it works, which I'll tell you, sometimes I go to some local meetings and people are like, we don't know how it works. It's a mystery. And I'm like, there's a chapter that tells us. So what are the works that I need to do? What is the action that I need to do to take me from that place of hopelessness to that place of hope? Well, it's outlined on page 59 and on the very top of page 60. The actions that I need to take to get from that hopelessness, to get to that hope, are the 12 steps. And that is what the works is. Now I'm just gonna talk about these 12 steps. These 12 steps are not simply a set it and forget it deal. I gotta work these 12 steps as a way of life, like my life depends on it, because it does. That is what is asked of me. But, and I talk about this quite a bit, it's this idea that if I am standing on the edge of the cliff, now I'm gonna have to do the whole metaphor. Alrighty. At the top of page 59, it says half measures availed us nothing, which is rude. Because I think half measures should give me a little something. You guys, right? Like, I'm not saying I should get all of it, but if I'm going to get half, I should at least get like a quarter out. You know what I'm saying? And we say, half measures. And it's like, what does that mean? Well, it means the exact same thing as faith without works is dead, which is to say, doing some of this, but not doing all of this as a way of life, and I will drink again. That's what it's saying. Which is rude, right? And it says, we stood at the turning point. Now, this third step is the turning point for my entire life. And it says, we asked. And any time in this book it says, we asked, that's a prayer. Y'all know that there's a sneaky little prayer in how it works? Who tucked that in there? God, higher power, creator, spirit of the universe, I ask your protection and care with a complete abandon. And that's what we're doing in the third step, is I'm taking this leap of faith with complete abandon. I don't know what's going to happen. You see, my step one experience is a little like I'm running in the woods and I'm being chased by a monster. And that monster is the obsession of the mind, the inevitability of the first drink. And I am running. And that's the thing, is I'm trying different things. I'm sprinting and I'm giving it my best go. But that monster comes and it always closes the gap, and it gets me, and it tears me apart. And I pull myself up and I start running again, but it gets me and tears me apart. And after a while, maybe I start hiding in caves and hollowed out logs, but it finds me every single time. And man, the more that I'm trying to run, the slower I get, because it is tearing me. And it seems like, man, I can't even get up before it takes me down again. But by some miracle of miracles, I make it out of the woods and I make it to this clearing. And I run and I end up running to the edge of a cliff. And I look over that edge of the cliff and I see a cloud, and it's a cloud of unknowing. I don't know what's beyond that cloud. But what I hear is I hear your voices saying, jump, jump, take that leap of faith. We promise it's worth it. Jump. And with the monster that is my alcoholism barreling down, and the reality that there is nothing between me and that monster, and the belief that there could be a solution, there could be an answer, man, I'm gonna reach out with an open hand with that faith, and I'm gonna take that leap, and I don't know what's gonna happen. And that leap is these 12 steps, is a way of life, like my life depends on it, because it does. And that's what I'm doing, and that's the action that I'm taking. And how do I know I've made my third step decision? How do I know I've made that leap of faith? Well, how I know is I've got pen to paper and I'm writing inventory. And I'm writing inventory like my life depends on it, because it does. And I begin to have a look at my resentments, and I begin to see the truth about them. I begin to see that I was wrong. I begin to see where, man, I did these things that I'm angry that they did. I begin to see where I made a decision based on self, which later put me in a position to be hurt. I begin to see where I was selfish, where I was dishonest, where I was self-seeking, and where I was afraid. And I begin to see the truth. And I could not see the truth if I did not put pen to paper. You see, I can believe in the power of inventory, but if I don't write the inventory, I will drink again. Faith without works was dead. And again, I take those fears that I see in any others that I have, and I have a look at them on my fear inventory. And I see why I have these fears. I see how me relying on me makes this fear worse. And I see how if I rely on this power that I don't know, that I'm just beginning to experience now, that will overcome this fear. And I can only know that by writing the inventory. And then I begin to have a look at my sex conduct. And I begin to see where I caused harm, where I was selfish, where I was inconsiderate, where I was dishonest, where I justifiably aroused jealousy, suspicion, and bitterness. And I begin to see what should I have done instead. And that begins to mold me. That begins to mold my sex ideal, an ideal that for me, I don't just throw in a cupboard. It is something that I take to prayer, because it is about who I need to be before, during, and after a relationship. And there is no power in an ideal. The power comes through the experience, which is to say, I need the works to get the results. And so when we write out that inventory, I take that action. And we talk about bottom of page 70. It says, in this book, you read again and again. So bottom of page 70, top of page 71. In this book, you read again and again. See, it wasn't just me that made up this theme. It's telling us it's a theme. But I know some of y'all are like, oh man, who invited her? It's all good. We'll inventory it. So it says in this book, you read again and again that faith did for us what we could not do for ourselves, which is to say, this power is doing for me that which I could not do for myself, but I cannot experience it until I take the action. I need to take the action of the inventory. And it says, we hope you are convinced now that God can remove whatever self-will has blocked you off from him. And if you're here today and you're like, why do I have to write inventory? What is the purpose of this? What's the point of 4 through 9? Well, the point of 4 through 9 is to clear away the stuff inside of me that is blocking me from this power. I need to clear that away. The power was always there, but I'm blocked. And so we pop over. And the next chapter is entitled Into Action. So this whole next chapter, it's like, man, I thought I was doing a whole bunch of action in this How It Works chapter. I wrote a whole inventory. And now what you're going to tell me is that I need more action? Oh, man. And the next direction that we get is that I've got to then take that inventory to God and another human being. And when I do that, we experience the 5th step promises, where we illuminate every twist of character, every dark cranny of the past. It's on 75, but where I'm going to direct this is on page 76, if y'all want to get ahead of me, is that idea that I share the stuff and I get another set of eyes on it, and I invite this power into the process, and the result of that, in the 5th step promises on page 75, it says, we may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. Begin. I can't stop here. Faith without works was dead, but I begin to have a spiritual experience. And I cannot have that spiritual experience without that action, without doing that 5th step. So it is faith and it is works. And if I don't have both of them, I will drink again. So let's pop over to page 76. What do I do after I do a 5th step? Well, I take that quiet hour, which is like, oh, thank goodness we get a little break in this whole Into Action chapter. Woo! And I have a quiet hour, and everything that I saw, and all the work that I've done up to this point, I reflect on. And I sit in a meditative process. Am I willing for this stuff that I see to go? And if I'm willing for it to be removed from me, taken from me, then I say the 7th step prayer. And what do I do from there? Well, it says on page 76, second full paragraph, now we need more action? Goodness gracious, this whole thing is all about action. It's a real action-oriented program. Wild. And it says, without which we find that faith without works is dead. And so I need more works. But you know what happens is the more that I take the action, the more that my faith increases. Not because I'm believing more or thinking more, but because I am experiencing the results of the work. And so what do I have to do? Well, here's my experience. I got to go out from there, and I've got to make my amends. And I've got to set right those wrongs where I've caused harm. And let's be real, that's the last thing I want to do. If you've ever had the pre-amends, I call them the twisties and the resisties. You know, it's like, oh, I don't want to do that. And I never have more digestive issues than right before I got to make an amends. If you've done it, you know, it's like, ooh, I'm feeling a little backed up. I don't need one of those yogurts that'll get it moving, or the AA coffee where the creamer doesn't stir it in no matter how hard you try. I just need to go make some amends. That'll clear it out. And so that's what we do. And that's what I did, is I went out and I made the amends. And then it's wild, because I'm not done. So it goes, page 84, it says, this thought brings us to step 10. All right. Am I done with this work? And sorry, I'm going quickly. I'm just aware of the time. So step 10, page 84, it's the second full paragraph. This thought brings us to step 10, which is, I can rest on my laurels? Is this the laurel resting chapter? Goodness gracious, no, it's into action. It says, which suggests we continue to take personal inventory and to continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. Well, that is rude. That is rude. When did I learn to take personal inventory, and what did I learn to do with it? Well, I learned how to take personal inventory in step 4. I learned what to do with that inventory in 5 through 7. And how I learned to set right any new mistakes was in steps 8 and 9. And so the 10th step, and it gives us these directions. The first direction is to watch. I'm going to watch for resentment, dishonesty, selfishness, and fear. And then it says when these pop up, which I can't tell you how rude that is, not if. Have we met me? I thought I'd do a 4 through 9, a little house cleaning, and I would be as pure as the driven snow. Well, Michael will know what the snow looks like in Canada in February. It's not that pure. It's got all the gravel and the road salts. It's not great. So it is when these things pop up. So when I have a resentment, when I have fear, when I've noticed I've been dishonest, or when I've fallen into selfishness, I ask God to remove it. I turn to prayer just like I did in the 7th step. And then I discuss it with someone immediately, just as I did in the 5th step. And that's what I found to be so important, is to discuss it with someone through the columns. The columns that I learned in the 4th step, man, if they could get me freedom from resentments I didn't think I could ever get free of, or fears that pervaded me my whole life, why wouldn't I use them in the 10th step? And then it says we make amends if we've harmed anyone. Quickly, if we've harmed anyone. And I learned how to do that in step 9. And then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. And my whole perception shifts, and it drives me into the 12th step. How can I be of service to others? Now, here's the thing, is bottom of 84, top of 85, what we have is what are known as the 10th step promises. I don't quite have time to go through all of them. But the 10th step promises talk about how the problem has been removed. The obsession of the mind is gone. We are not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. We are placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. We have not even sworn off the thing that I needed to desperately to happen in step 1. Because in step 1, a relapse is inevitable and is imminent. It will happen. Well, in step 10, and actively practicing step 10, I'm okay. The obsession is gone. I am free. I'm not fighting it. That is what is available. But I can't get there without the action. I can't get to that promise without the action of 4 through 9 and continuing it in the 10th step. And on page 85, the second full paragraph, it says, it is easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. It is easy. It is human to fall into complacency. And the book always meets me where I'm at, because it's not shaming us for it. It's going to take us where we need to go. It says we're headed for trouble if we do, for alcohol is a subtle foe. We are not cured of alcoholism. What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. And I'm going to point something out. I have a daily reprieve, not contingent on my spiritual condition, but contingent on the maintenance of my spiritual condition. I have a daily reprieve that is contingent on the actions that I take on a daily basis. Which is good, because that means my sobriety isn't contingent on how I feel. It's contingent on what I do. And that word reprieve, one of the best definitions that I've found for reprieve, and I do have a 1930s dictionary because I'm fun, but one of the best definitions of the word reprieve that I ever found was a stay of execution. I have an illness that is fatal. I have an illness that is progressive. I have an illness that is incurable. But on a daily basis, at the 11th hour, there is a call on the phone. And it's like the governor saying, no, we're not going to execute her today. Like, I get that experience as the result of this course of action and continuing this course of action. Let's pop over to page 88. And page 88, what it's talking about there is very, very bottom two paragraphs, page 88. We're talking in the 11th step where I combine prayer, meditation, and inventory, and I combine them together. The 12 and 12 talks about how that creates an unshakable foundation for life, which tells me my foundation needs to be all 12 steps. It says, we alcoholics are undisciplined, so we let God discipline us in the simple way we have just outlined, which is to say, I take these daily actions. And it says, but that is not all. And there is action and more action. So not just daily prayer, daily meditation, daily inventory. And I promise when I do it on a daily basis, it goes from being this thing like, oh man, that's a whole lot. You want me to do all that? To I could not live without it. And it allows me to live a level of life better than the best I had ever known. But it says there's action and more action. It says faith without works is dead. Again, faith without works is dead. The next chapter is entirely devoted to step 12. Step 12 has three portions. The first is the promise that I will have this spiritual awakening. It is promised if I follow these directions. The second is that I carry this message to other alcoholics. This message. The third is that I practice these principles, which are the 12 steps, in all my affairs. I practice the 12 steps in all areas of my life. Real quick, we're going to pop over to page 100 and then to page 14 and 15. And then I know, eye on the time, I'm landing the plane. And it says, page 100, first paragraph. It says, both you and the new man must walk day by day in the path of spiritual progress, works, actions on a daily basis, carrying this message. And it says, if you persist, remarkable things will happen. When we look back, we realize the things which came to us when we put ourselves in God's hands were better than anything we could have planned. And when I took that leap of faith on the edge of the cliff, I didn't see what was on the other side of the clouds. But here's what I found is every time I take that leap of faith, what is there is God's hands, or the hands of the universe. You know what I mean? And I am caught, and I am safe, and I am secure. But I don't know that until I take that leap of faith. And this is what I'm going to end on, page 14 and 15, in Bill's story. And it talks about, very bottom paragraph of page 14. My friend had emphasized the absolute necessity of demonstrating these principles, the steps in all my affairs. Particularly was it imperative of the utmost importance to work with others as he had worked with me, to carry this message. It says, faith without works was dead, he said. And how appallingly true for the alcoholic. For if an alcoholic failed to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others. So if I don't grow and I don't enlarge and I don't seek to grow that spiritual life through the actions of the 12 steps and through carrying this message to others and to being of service to others, it says he could not survive the certain trials and low spots ahead. There are trials and low spots, not because I'm an alcoholic, but because I am a human being. And I am not exempt from the human experience, and some of the most painful things that have ever happened to me have happened to me in sobriety. And how do I survive that? It says if he did not work, he would surely drink again. That's that promise. If I am an alcoholic, I will drink again. And if he drank, he would surely die. Then faith would be dead indeed. With us, it is just like that. And so on page 16, faith has to work 24 hours a day in and through us or we perish. But when I do that, I need look no further for utopia. It is a wonderful, incredible life when I combine the two. And if you've not had the miracle happen to you yet, or for you yet, let us help you. Our very life depends on it. Thank you for letting me share. And I'm sorry I took it right to the hour, pushing the limits.